How's it going, guys? Will Robinson here from Robinson's Auto, ToolsandTime.com. Welcome back. Figured I'd reintroduce myself just in case you forgot who I was. I just hear crickets. I figured I'd try something a little different. I'm just going to throw up the camera and take you guys along. I got a couple odds and end jobs and a couple things I got to tighten up on. But I won't bore you guys with all that stuff. But I got a couple inspections, odds and ends, and this one main job that just got dropped off on the hook. There's a 94 Ford Escort with a 1.9. It's got a real bad rattle. As soon as it started, the owner stopped the vehicle, parked it, had it towed here. We fired it up out in the parking lot, and I can almost guarantee you I know what it is. Only because those of you who worked on these 1.9s back in the day, or owned one back when they were popular, they were notorious for dropping valve seats. And my gut feeling is that this is exactly what happened. It dropped the valve seat. It's in the combustion chamber and it's rattling around, probably making its way through the intake to the rest of the cylinders. Hopefully not. Hopefully it didn't damage the lower end, but that's my gut feeling, and it's not good. So what we're going to do, we're going to go out there, we're going to do some basic troubleshooting, determine if it is top end, lower end, where the noise is coming from, and take it from there. So without further ado, let's get to work. Now let's fire it up. This is a cold start. Okay, so what I started doing so far is I pulled the fuse for the fuel injection. Underneath this cover is the 30 amp fuse. I took and I yanked that out and I just set it off to the side here so I don't lose it. And I started pulling the plugs out and doing a compression check. And what I found is I started on number 4 where I thought the problem was, and I had like 170 some pounds of compression. Then I went to number 3, I had 0 compression, but the first thing I noticed when I pulled the plug out on number 3 is that it's bent over. Never a good sign. Number 4 looked good. So I'm assuming that we dropped the valve seat, and my only hopes is that it didn't go through the piston or damage the cylinder. However, what I'm going to do now is pull the valve cover off and see if I can see a difference in the height of the valve stems compared to 4 and 3 or whatever cylinders I want to compare when I take the rockers off, if the seat did drop indeed, and if so, I guess I gotta start pulling the head off. I wish I had a bore scope or something I could actually check that cylinder prior to going that far. This one isn't bad to pull the head off, but however, I'm going to pull the valve cover real quick. It's just these 3 retaining bolts in the center. You got a breather hose off to the right here, and it pretty much lifts off. We have some major problems with this Escort. I had to set my priorities a little different. Just got done going over this geo tracker for inspection. Brakes, left front were 11B. We measured brake pads in 30/2 of an inch, so we had 11/32 material left on the brake pad, and they're bonded. So your pads will most times these days come bonded. That means they're glued to the backing plate, so the friction material is glued to the bonding plate, and we have 11/32 of friction material left. Rears around 5B, and they were bonded as well. Now the rears, sometimes you'll find them still to be riveted if your drum brakes. However, these are drum brakes in the rear, but they're using bonded pads. Tires, I measured them out in 30/2 of an inch as well. Fronts are around 9/32, and the rears are 9/32. These tires were all replaced at the same time, and this vehicle's actually exempt, so we don't have to worry about emissions on this one. I noticed the wipers are shot, so we're going to have to put wiper blades on it. Front end's tight, all the components are tight in the front. This is a good customer of mine, so I know this vehicle's in good shape. So we're going to go ahead and check all the lights and replace the front wiper blades, and she'll be good to go. wish they were all this easy. So, yeah. These are 17-inch wiper blades. Pretty much as you see, the way these things are hooked are real easy. Not sure if you can see it. You got a little tab in the back. You just push that down. I'll show you when we install the new one. This plastic piece has the same exact corresponding piece. As you feel it clipped in, remove them. If you come in here, you'll see there's a little tab in the back. You push that tab in, and there's a little plastic piece that goes in a little hole, and you just pull it out. Simple as that. Pull it around, just put it in any direction. Now you can get it off. Get a new one. Pretty much reverse it. That's all there is to it. Put it until it clips. We're good to go. You can see these blades are shot. It's pretty straightforward, guys. Just gonna remove this breather hose. I don't think most of these are held with a hose clamp. 10mm retainers. Okay, good. Set this out of the way. 10mm. I'm going to take and remove the rocker arms from 3 and 4. Set them in the valve cover the same way. What I was hoping to see here was an obvious difference in height. I did some quick measurements. Actually, this valve here is actually loose, so I was able to measure and compare number 1 and number 3 plus number 4. So I was able to compare the known bad cylinder number 3 to 2 other cylinders, since we had the rockers off of this one, and this one's actually relaxed right now. When I found this one's about an 1/8 inch lower than the other 2 intake valves, so I guess you know what that means. Off with its head. Okay, so I want to have this head off by lunchtime, and it's almost 11 o'clock now, so I'm not going to be able to cover most of this stuff. However, this is a pretty high priority job, so I got to get this thing done, but I'll cover as much as I can. As you notice, I took the rest of the rockers off. I'm going to yank the head just to see what we got going on. If it damaged the piston, hopefully I could just drop the pan and pop a piston in it and a cylinder head, a used head, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to start by removing the coil pack and all the plug wires, and start removing everything that hooks up to the intake, as far as the fuel lines, wire connections, vacuum hoses. We'll disconnect the battery and the exhaust. Air temp. Quick spot, air cleaner. Whoop. Plug wires. The amount of coil pack. Coil pack. Got a little capacitor here for noise. Set the coil pack out of the way. Rattle cable. Rattle cable bracket. wrench for that one. Yeah, that'll go. PVC hose. I'm going to try to leave the exhaust manifold hooked up, so I'm going to leave the EGR pipe running back. So that should be fine. Next, vacuum line for the brake booster. Okay. Get that out of the way. Got some coolant temp sensors over here. There's a main harness over here. Now disconnected from the harness. Okay, what I did next was unplug the alternator. Took that one 10 millimeter lug off the main wire, unhooked that. Pulled up on the tensioner, removed the belt, and then I removed the tensioner. So right down there. Once I had the tensioner removed, I tried to remove the timing cover, however you can't because the motor mounts in the way. I noticed that this bracket is bolted on the cylinder head, so we're going to have to take and remove the alternator to remove that one retaining bolt that's right down there. So I don't think I have enough space to take that retaining bolt out. If so, I just leave everything in place, but just in case, I'm going to take and remove the alternator. So let's do it. Okay guys, I didn't remove the alternator all the way. I just took the retaining bolts out, slid it back just enough to remove that one retaining bolt that goes to the head. And I took and I popped the dipstick out of its retaining bracket and pulled it up out of the block. And as you can see guys, I have no debris in that oil. It just looks spotless. So I'm hoping the bottom end's okay. If worse comes to worse, maybe we just have a cracked piston and we can replace that. Now what's bothering me the most about this job is I rebuilt this motor probably 4 years ago. However, it has over 100,000 miles on that rebuilt engine, but I had to drop the valve seat because I can't see something going wrong with the bottom end already. Okay, just a quick once over where I'm at right now. I drained the radiator, removed the radiator cap, that way it drains a lot easier. You'll notice once you start draining it, it'll start gurgling. Remove the cap and it'll start coming out nice. Removed the lower hose, that drained the block. Let me see what else I do. I came over here, removed the heater hose that went right here. In addition, I removed the upper hose. Took the two retaining bolts off the exhaust manifold down at the donut, and that lowered the front exhaust. So pretty much what I have left is the fuel lines and the timing cover. In order for me to remove this timing cover, I got to remove the motor mount. Therefore, I placed a jack under the oil pan with a block of wood. Got it firmly resting on it now, and I'm going to remove the motor mount, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, to remove that timing cover, not only did I have to remove the motor mount, I also had to remove the harmonic balancer. Pretty straightforward. Just take and remove the retaining bolt and wiggle it off. I didn't even have to use a puller. Just gave it a couple jiggles on the wiggle and off she came. Next, I'm going to take and loosen up the tensioner. Not sure if you can see it down here because of the shadow. I'm going to loosen that up and remove the time belt. I got the time marks lined up. I'm not sure if you can see it down there. However, there's a notch and a little notch in the housing. You line that straight up. And also on this cam, there's another notch, and you line that straight up with the dot. So let's take and remove the time belt. Okay, so pretty much all I did is I took a 1/2-inch socket and ratchet, loosened up that retaining bolt on that tensioner, put a pry bar between this stud for the timing cover and the time belt. I'll be putting a new time belt on it if all is well. Pushed over on the tensioner and tightened the tensioner up in the loose position, and that'll allow me to simply remove the time belt just like so. Now pretty much all I have left is to remove these fuel lines. I took and removed the safety clips off them already, and I'll give you a quick shot on how to remove them. Okay, I have this multi-set of line extractors. I'm not sure the correct name of them, but Ford uses these quite often, you'll find. So you just want to figure out the right size. See if I can do this one-hand man. And pretty much, you see that spring on the inside? Hopefully you can see it. Probably not with the shadow. However, there's a returning spring, and pretty much we want that lip of this tool to push that spring open. As we push down on the line a little bit, that'll allow us to lift up on the, or push down on the fuel line, one or the other. Most likely pull down on the fuel line. It takes a little bit. I actually think we got it moving already. Yeah, we do. It's coming. Okay. I removed the fuel pressure earlier. However, there is some residual fuel leaking out. But that's pretty much all there is to it, guys. It's kind of hard to do with one hand, but I'll get that in a minute. As you can see, the line removed. And pretty much, as you can see, there's two O-rings. That spring just simply goes up and goes around that lip. And when we put that tool in there, we just expand that spring and push it over that lip. I'm going to do the same thing to the little one. Okay, like I mentioned before, we're leaving the intake on. This wire harness is attached to all the injectors, idle air, TPS, and whatnot. Vacuum hoses that need to be removed were removed earlier. All the radiator hoses are off. Block has been drained. Time belt's off. I just broke all the head bolts loose and zipped them out with my impact. So we should be able to lift this head off with the exhaust manifold and intake manifold still attached. I don't believe there's anything else holding us back. So let's see what happens. Okay. I hope I lied to you. We got something holding us back there. This one wire loom that goes to the alternator is separate and has to stay. So this harness is staying. And there's also a wire that goes down to the crank sensor. We gotta unplug that. Okay guys, I got the cylinder head over here at the bench. Remember back when I was checking the height of the valve stems and I told you that number 3 intake valve was lower than the rest of them, and most likely it dropped the valve seat? Well, my predictions were correct. If you take a look in here, see how you can see right through that valve seat down into the chamber? That's not good. Right there's a piece of the valve seat. It looks like we may have caught this one in time before it damaged the pistons too bad. The top of the pistons do have some damage on them. Cylinder walls look okay. But what happens is, well, the pieces of the valve guide get in there and they start hammering it. And then as they break, whatever ended up in the intake floated around to the other cylinders. And as you can see, it made its way throughout most of the cylinders. But the pistons don't look all that bad. I'm going to crank it over and bring it up and check everything out, make sure they're not cracked. And then I gotta take a ride to the yard and hopefully we could get a used head and get this thing back together today. I'm gonna try to keep this video rolling. I'm not gonna wait like a week before posting the next one. I'm just gonna see how this turns out and just keep on posting until it's done. Because like I mentioned, this one's high priority. No matter what I gotta do, even if it's changing the motor, it's gotta be done in the next couple days. So he pretty much needs his vehicle. As you can see, I predicted 12 o'clock. I'm a little late. Plus I carried it over to the bench and was inspecting some things out. I had it off by like 12:10. Kind of figured it would take me around an hour from start to off. But that's what we got, guys. So I'm gonna go clean up the cylinders and see what we got, and I'll give you guys a shot at that in a little bit. Maybe I'll edit this one and post it so we're not making them too long, and I'll keep you guys in the loop. Alright, thanks for watching. Stay tuned.